Hello, friends. Today we're going to be reading The Owl and the Pussycat. The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money and wrapped it up in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh, lovely pussycat, oh, pussycat, my love, what a beautiful pussycat you are. You are, what a beautiful pussycat you are. And Pussycat said to the owl, you elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be merry, too long we have tarried, but what shall we do for a ring? They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the palm tree grows. And there, in a wood, a piggy-wig stood with a ring at the end of his nose, his nose, his nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy, I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon. And hand in hand, on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon. The moon, the moon, they danced by the light of the moon. And other nonsense. There was an old man who, when little, fell casually into a kettle, but growing too stout, he could never get out, so he passed all his life in that kettle. was an old man of Dunluce who went out to sea on a goose. When he'd gone out a mile, he observed with a smile, "It's time to return to Dunluce." There was an old man of Blackheath, whose head was adorned with a wreath of lobsters and spice, pickled onions and mice, that uncommon old man of Blackheath. There was a young lady of Welling, whose praise all the world was a-telling. She played a harp and caught several carp, that accomplished young lady of Welling. There was a young lady whose bonnet came untied when the bird sat upon it, but she said, "I don't care. All the birds in the air are welcome to sit on my bonnet." The end. The next book we'll be reading is Sleep, Big Bear, Sleep by Maureen Wright. But before we do, please do me a favor. Hit the like button and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Old Man Winter from a storm cloud spied his big bear friend in the countryside. He leaned to the earth and softly sighed, "Sleep, Big Bear, sleep." But Big Bear didn't hear very well. He couldn't sleep in his den in the dell. He thought he heard as twilight fell, "Drive a jeep, Big Bear, drive a jeep." So Big Bear yawned as he drove around in a jeep on a road just south of town. But after a while he stopped in a park. An old man whispered as it grew dark, "Sleep, Big Bear, sleep." But Big Bear didn't hear very well. He couldn't sleep in his den in the dell. He thought he heard as dry leaves fell, "Sweep, Big Bear, sweep." street and swept each room, so nice and sweet. But after a while he yawned again, and Old Man Winter warned his friend, "Sleep, Big Bear, sleep." But Big Bear didn't hear very well. He couldn't sleep in his den in the dell. He thought he heard as the shadows fell. Leap, Big Bear, leap. So Big Bear found a frog he knew and played leapfrog while the cold wind blew, till all at once he fell to the ground. The wind through the trees was the only sound. The Old Man Winter said with a frown, "Sleep, Big Bear, sleep." So Big Bear didn't hear very well. He couldn't sleep in his den in the dell. He thought he heard as darkness fell. Dive deep, Big Bear, dive deep. He dove in it deep and swam to the shore. He had never been so very tired before. His head dropped down and he let out a snore, and the Old Man Winter said once before, "Sleep, Big Bear, sleep." But Big Bear didn't hear very well. He couldn't sleep in his den in the dell. He thought he'd heard as snowflakes fell. Climb a mountain steep, Big Bear. So Big Bear trudged to the mountain top where the cold wind blew and the temperature dropped. He sat on a stump on the highest spot and wished for a blanket and a fold of cot. Then he stumbled back down with his eyes half shut, so tired he didn't know which end was up. Old Man yelled while shaking his head. "Hey there, Bear, did you hear what I said? It's winter time. Now go to bed." Big Bear's eyes were droopy and red. "You could have told me before," he said. He lumbered nearby to his cozy den, rubbed his eyes, and yawned again. He put on his PJs and blew out the light and his pillow, he said good night. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day. God bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you, and may he be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you